glorifying the student revolution.
সময় পরিক্রমা শিবিরের ব্রেন চাইল্ড এই আন্দোলন এখন সর্বজনীন গোটা সংস্কার আন্দোলন হলেও তাতে এখনো কলকাঠি নাড়ছে ছাত্র শিবির।
And on August 5th, I have seen a reporter saying that fascist Hasina has fled.
দর্শক, সকাল থেকেই কিন্তু শাহবাগ এলাকায় জড়ো হওয়ার চেষ্টা করছেন ছাত্রছাত্রীরা এবং নানা শ্রেণী পেশার মানুষ।
These media organizations were very closely allied with the previous regime, to the point where they almost became the de facto mouthpieces of the Awami League government. After Sheikh Hasina fell on August 5th, and you opened the newspapers and every single front page called her fascist, called her dictator, called her regime authoritarian. You know, newspapers that we just didn't even think had that term in their vocabulary when it came to referring to her. It showed what a free media can really do.
In Sheikh Hasina's wake, Bangladeshi media outlets have flexed journalistic muscles that many thought had completely atrophied in the more than 2 decades of her government. There have been investigative pieces revealing what went down in the very last days that Sheikh Hasina was in the country, the orders she gave, and the eventual pushback that came from an army that knew she had to flee or risk being killed. Such intimate reporting of the former Prime Minister had long been one of the most stringent editorial red lines in the country. Journalists have also, unlike during the Hasina years, delved into the extent of government corruption.
রূপপুর পারমাণবিক বিদ্যুৎ কেন্দ্র থেকে $500 কোটি বেশি আত্মসাৎ করেছেন সাবেক প্রধানমন্ত্রী শেখ হাসিনা।
Fraud and cronyism in the corporate world is also more sharply in the spotlight. For example, conglomerates closely allied to the Hasina government, like the S. Alam Group.
This is a huge story. S. Alam Group became so powerful, and it's one of the closest ally of the then Prime Minister. It started using state security apparatus for hostile takeover of different organizations, including media. It took over Ekushe Television, which aired one of the speeches given by the opposition BNP leader who is in exile in London. Similarly, he took over 8 banks. Now reports are coming out that he took away almost $20 billion from these banks, and most of his money, actually, investment now is in abroad, not in Bangladesh.
I was one of the authors of one of the stories that you're talking about. And I want to tell you that our story was not extraordinary. It was really like a run-of-the-mill regular business story that any publication should be doing. But over here, this involved so much secrecy. It involved multiple layers of legal vetting. I honestly just think we did our duty.
The newspaper Zaima Islam works for is rare in Bangladesh. The Daily Star is a publication that pushed against media repression even during the Hasina years. The journalism the paper produced was matched by the work of just one other outlet, Prathom Alo. The 2 newspapers were the mainstream media holdouts during the many years in which Sheikh Hasina and her party, the Awami League, bent and then broke the media in the country. Media outlets that could not be co-opted were bought out by cronies. Systematic intimidation pushed journalists deeper and deeper under a pile of stories that were deemed taboo. They got calls from officials. Even the most meekly challenging journalists would be blacklisted from the Prime Minister's highly choreographed press conferences. Many journalists left the mainstream and moved online, and yet even they were amongst those kidnapped and disappeared by thugs paid off by the government. Those who were spared were ensnared by harsh media laws.
One usual tactic was to sort of deploy supporters to sue journalists and editors with multiple cases in various places in the country. The Daily Star editor had 82 cases against him. Prathom Alo editor had 56 cases. Ahmmad-স editor had even more, actually. And the tactic was to keep them busy in running around court corridors rather than focusing on journalism. The other way was when they were attending courts, they were harangued. Mahmoudur Rahman, Ahmmad-স editor, was actually physically assaulted and he was severely injured.
In the last 15 years, I mean, Sheikh Hasina as well her successive information ministers have been saying that the media landscape has evolved under her regime.
বাংলাদেশের গণমাধ্যম অনেক উন্নয়নশীল দেশের চেয়েও অবাধ স্বাধীনতা ভোগ করছে বলে মন্তব্য করেন তথ্যমন্ত্রী ডক্টর হাসান মাহমুদ।
I have lost counting of like how many newspapers got licensed, but the thing is like they were always maintaining this unwritten self-censorship. Firstly, because most of the businessmen were Hasina's beneficiaries, and then again, Hasina, her administration enacted laws like Digital Security Act, under which more than 200 journalists were implicated for crimes that didn't actually commit. So there's this sense of fear, and which again fueled the self-censorship.
In the days after the fall of Sheikh Hasina, the activists who had led the uprisings that toppled her sought out a new leader to oversee Bangladesh's transition into the post-Hasina era. The man they approached was Muhammad Yunus, economist, Nobel Prize winner, and once a victim of the former Prime Minister's political vendettas. The interim government Yunus leads has numerous challenges before it, not least a tortured media landscape.
It's beginning of unshackling. I wouldn't say that it's totally free now. It is free on the part of the government, but there are lots of score settling going on. Those who were victimized before now trying to take revenge, and that's one reason why you see allegations on harassments against pro-Awami League journalists.
The Yunus government, which is leading the interim administration right now, has said that they will not interfere in any way in obstructing media freedom. And I think they are true to their words.
সংবাদ মাধ্যম ও মত প্রকাশের পূর্ণ স্বাধীনতা ইতিমধ্যে নিশ্চিত করা হয়েছে। আমরা সবাইকে বলে দিয়েছি, আপনারা মন খুলে আমাদের সমালোচনা করুন। আমরা সবার মতামতের প্রতি শ্রদ্ধাশীল। মিডিয়া যাতে কোনো রকম বাধা বিপত্তি ছাড়া নির্বিঘ্নে তাদের কাজ করতে পারে সেজন্য একটা মিডিয়া কমিশন গঠন করা সরকারের সক্রিয় বিবেচনাধীন।
But the owners, I mean the gatekeepers who are in the leading position of those media houses, they have this mindset of cowering down to power. They have this notion that okay, Bangladesh Nationalist Party will come to power if an election will take place, and they are not going to publish any stories that will earn them the ire of the BNP party.
A media landscape conditioned into fearing the worst from all quarters, be it those in power or those who might come to power. A country trying to come to terms with the abuses of its former Prime Minister. A citizenry wary of both politicians and the media. To call the situation in Bangladesh complex would be a significant understatement. And for the media there, how and whether reform takes place will be crucial to its future.
We need media that can thrive and survive despite who comes in power. This means an entire structural reimagining of what media ownership in Bangladesh looks like and what kind of legal safeguards there are for journalists. You protect the journalist from all forms of repercussion, all forms of reprisal, and you'll see the journalist truly living up to his or her potential.
Thank you for watching. Hit that like button and leave us a comment to let us know what you thought about anything we covered this week. And don't forget to follow us on social media. The links are in the description, and you can also subscribe to our newsletter for updates from the show.